Hi, my name is Julius Reed, and today I thought I might provide a bit of context on life. This is quite sobering, so that's something to consider. Feel free to change to a One Direction clip if you're so inclined. But here goes. We have this growing conflict between ourselves, and I talk as a fellow human being. I'm not trying to sell anything, however, here's just a little bit of perspective to freshen your mind, or maybe you can learn something from this, hopefully. So in order to adapt to the 20th century, the human race I think, had hit a turning point where population would become the most significant issue to have ever braced us in the history of mankind. Population growth. And if you look at the wars, in particular World War I and II, which, was so dramatic because of the number of casualties involved and the amount of warfare that went on. I mean, between countries, which is quite significant. I mean, obviously you had that before, but on a world scale. It simply couldn't have happened if we had less people. So, at the beginning of the 20th century, we had about 1.7 billion people. And, I feel that in order to reach the 3 billion people that we did hit by the beginning of 1960, we had to have some kind of major conflict in order to reach some kind of global consensus and prevent any more conflict that could potentially harm our ability to grow. So if you look at Europe, it was very fragmented at the beginning of the 20th century. And so you need to kind of reach a kind of global consensus in order to prevent any more conflict, have some kind of the arbiter of life that dictates what's happening. And that's when the US came along, World War II, our beacon of hope, so to speak, via capitalism and democracy. They were the ones who reigned in the end and still continue to reign, not for too long, though. And, Russia, we could talk about them, not really significant because obviously they didn't prevail in the end. Now, via the US, not only did we adopt capitalism, however, we also went through a period of growth and prosper that, the world had simply not seen in its entire history, really. We began working together and, we stopped bombing each other for the most part, I guess. But the problem is that when the world gets so big and efficient, it becomes this machine, it becomes this entity. It becomes completely reliant and dependent on this one mechanism. You could happily say that, or easily say that every single thing in this world can be denoted by money. I think that is the big mechanism that's been created. Via capitalism, you create, the free exchange. You have this money, which people trade for things. It becomes the biggest thing in this world. Everything is dependent on money. You value things by money. You don't go, well, that computer is worth a computer. No, you don't think in terms of absolute terms. Everything is relative to money. The problem is that people often associate money as the one thing we have in common, which is true, because that's the whole point of a currency. It denotes the common value that we have. Yet that's such an individualistic approach that focuses not on people, but on individual wants. The problem with money is that it excludes the big picture. It's not so much of a, how much are you worth as a person via money, but the fact that you are another human being, that you are another unit out there. And contrary to popular belief, we all have the exact same needs and wants, regardless of what your wealth suggests. I'm not saying that money is bad or, that capitalism is bad. Nothing against capitalism. But these are simply the limitations of this system. That money becomes this kind of it is everything, essentially. Because nothing is really truly bad. Everything is simply a reflection on the human race. And if, according to history, we can't get along, whose fault's that? Do we blame it on the people or the system that the people put in? Well, everything comes down to the person at the end of the day. Now, the great thing about capitalism is, it separates the productive from the non-productive, and that's why it works so well. However, the biggest flaw is that it doesn't distinguish from the parasites and the productive. And so the two mingle together, and it completely distorts things, and it's basically what has brought the world to its knees. These parasites, they're taking over. You look at the US government, how large their deficit is. They are the parasite. And, the banks in particular also, via the government. I mean, everything comes down to government at the end of the day. Bank bailouts, taxpayer-funded programs, all that kind of thing. And as you can tell, the parasites have won. They've won, no doubt about it. The parasites have won. Screw the productive, even small-time productive. And so, not only through the manipulation via the government telling us that they need to exist in order for our survival, but this economic fascism, via large companies, government protection. So the ultimate problem is that when you let the parasites win, you fuck with capitalism. And when you fuck with capitalism, you're not only screwing over people with their money and their own lives, there's this disconnect. We forget that they're actually screwing with the viability of the human race. You know, the past 100 years, we've been depending on this capitalist model via money to keep us going. And when you destroy that via manipulation, you're essentially destroying the human race. If you collapse capitalism, you're completely destroying everything that the human race stands for. Everything people have put their collective effort towards over the past 100 years. So, you know, a bunch of fat cats can get rich when they're already rich. I mean, isn't that really the definition of evil? People who need to make money so that they can destroy the human race. And don't get me wrong, this isn't about money. I don't care about money. You know, I just want some sort of tangible future. Is it really that hard to ask? Oh, you know, don't you have enough money? Here, take my money. Oh, you already are, buddy. You know, forget the next 10 years. You know, I want the next 60 years. Is that hard to ask? The next 60 years. Can you figure that out? You know, how absurd is that? We can barely plan 10 years ahead. What 60 years? That's what I want. It can't be done. The human race, we can't do it. You know, you look at the Eurozone, it's at its 12th year, it's already on the verge of collapse. You know, you screw with capitalism, you screw with the future of the human race. You know, capitalism may seem like a game, you know, just a couple of charts on a computer as you know, partake on your 50-week holiday in the Bahamas. But our future survival depends on it, and, you know, you've destroyed it. They've destroyed it. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Please, take my $20 tip. What's after capitalism? I mean, capitalism is the most efficient method of organizing people. If you convince people to go down another dangerous route, you know, i.e. socialism, or even fascism as the people get desperate, and you've got the huge population that you do nowadays, you make things even worse. Come on. Now, with that said, you know, it's important to be glad that, you know, just you know, life in general, just be glad that you were given a chance, you know. Especially, I mean, just the fact that you're alive. Be happy for that. I mean, especially any young people who may be listening to this message, you know, things may be doom and gloom. However, consider this as an opportunity. You know, it sucks. I know. Trust me, I know. But, you know, consider this an opportunity to experience and learn. You know, it's not about how bad things will be in the future. You know, it's about what you take from that experience, you know. It won't make a difference whether you lose everything that you have right now or, you know, if you become a billionaire tomorrow. It doesn't mean anything if you do not learn from that experience. Because if you don't, your life is meaningless. And, you know, it's a far bigger burden to carry than whatever, you know, other demons you may have inside. Anyway, my 2 cents. Don't worry, guys. Have fun. It's the least you can do. And, yeah, if you've got a 3DS, friend code me, brah. Got my swagger. Sorry about that. If you enjoyed that, you can subscribe, share, like, whatever tickles your fancy. Until next time, thank you for listening.